Welcome to the inner game of basketball, flourishing in performance through freedom and focus. What I'm about to teach you is adapted from a book called The Inner Game of Tennis. It was written by a man named Tim Gallwey and published in 1974. Now, before anyone checks out because I said tennis, I want you to stay with me because I promise you, this has almost nothing to do with tennis and everything to do with what happens in your head when you play basketball. And it also has enormous value to every facet of your life as you learn and apply the principles of true focus. Tim Gallwey's The Inner Game of Tennis is considered one of the most important books ever written about performance focus. It has been used by athletes in every sport, by musicians, by surgeons, by business executives. The United States Olympic Committee has used its principles. Companies like Apple and Coca-Cola have used it to train their people. Other players and coaches who credit it as revolutionary to their own performance are Phil Jackson, Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, Pete Carroll, and perhaps most recently, Jared McCain, who says he read from The Inner Game of Tennis before every game he played at Duke, and now he continues in the NBA. Along with these greats, we're going to use it to understand something that's been holding you back. Not your talent, not your athleticism, but your own mind. So settle in. This is going to change the way you think about the game. Tim Gallwey was a tennis coach who noticed something strange. He had players who were technically skilled. They knew how to hit a forehand. They'd done it 1,000 times. But in certain moments, under pressure, in competition, when it mattered, they fell apart. And it wasn't physical. Their bodies knew what to do. Something else was going wrong. He started asking a different kind of question. Instead of, what's wrong with their technique? He asked, what's wrong with their thinking? And what he discovered was this. Every game is actually two games happening at the same time. There's the outer game, you against your opponent on the court with the ball, with the clock. Everybody can see that game. But there's also an inner game, and that one is invisible. That's you against your own mind, against your own doubt, your own fear, your own self-criticism. And Gallwey's insight, the insight that changed everything, was this. The inner game is usually harder than the outer game. And most of us have never been taught how to play the inner game. He also said something that I want you to sit with. The greatest obstacle to peak performance is not your opponent. It's not your physical limitations. It's not the referees or the crowd or your coaches. It's you. It's the way your own mind gets in the way. That's what this presentation is all about. Learning to get out of your own way. Gallwey discovered that there are two distinct voices, or what he calls selves, operating inside every athlete. To keep things simple, he calls them Self 1 and Self 2. Understanding these two selves is the foundation of everything else we're going to talk about, so I need you to really hear this. Self 1 is your conscious, thinking mind. Self 1 is the narrator, the critic, the coach inside your head who won't stop talking. Self 1 is the voice that says, as you step up to the line, don't miss this free throw. Self 1 is the voice that says, you always choke in the fourth quarter when things get tight. Self 1 tells you what to do, judges every mistake you make, overanalyzes your technique mid-play, and tightens your body up under pressure. Self 1 thinks it's helping. It's not helping. Self 2 is your body. Your trained, instinctive, capable body. Your confident, performing mind. Self 2 is every rep you've ever done in practice. It's the 10,000 shots you've taken. It's the footwork you've drilled, the reads you've made, the skills you've built over years. Self 2 doesn't need to think. It just plays freely from a practiced memory of what to do. And when Self 2 is given the freedom to operate without interference, it performs at an astonishing level. The voice of Self 1 is loud, anxious, and judgmental. The voice of Self 2 is quiet and steady. Here's the problem. Self 1 doesn't trust Self 2. It thinks it needs to be in charge. It thinks it needs to supervise. And the moment Self 1 starts supervising, the moment that inner critic starts talking, Self 2 gets disrupted. The very thing that could perform brilliantly gets shut down by the chatter of the mind trying to control it. Think about a time you were in the zone, really in the zone. What were you thinking? Nothing. You weren't thinking at all. You were just playing. We even have unique ways to talk about that in the zone performance. We say he was playing out of his mind. People say you were unconscious out there. Those words describe the detached focus of playing freely. That's what happens when Self 1 goes quiet and Self 2 is free. Now Gallwey gives us something really elegant, a formula. And I want you to remember this formula because it applies to every sport, every performance, every high-pressure moment you will ever face. And honestly, it applies in some way to every focused thing in your life. Performance equals potential minus interference. Read that again. Performance equals potential minus interference. Your potential is what you are capable of. It's what your body knows how to do. It's real. It's in you. It exists right now. When you walk onto that court, your potential walks with you. But interference is everything that gets between your potential and your performance. The self-doubt, the fear of failure, the voice saying, "Don't mess this up. We need this win." The analysis mid-play, the memory of the last mistake, all of that is interference. And interference, subtracted from your potential, is what you actually produce. This means something huge. It means that your goal is not just to build more potential through practice. It means your goal is also, maybe even more importantly, to reduce interference. Because if your potential is a 10 and your interference is a 6, you perform at a 4. But if you can get your interference down to a 2, you suddenly perform at an 8. Nothing changed about your talent. Everything changed about your mind. That is the inner game. Getting your interference as low as possible so that your potential can flourish freely. Okay, so what exactly is interference? Let's be specific, because these are the things that are costing you on the court right now. Fear of failure. This is a big one. What if I miss? The moment that question enters your mind before a play, you've already changed your body chemistry. Your muscles tighten, your vision narrows. You start playing to not lose instead of playing with freedom to win. And don't lose is a fundamentally different game than win. One is expansive. The other is survival mode. Overthinking. How many of you have stood at the free throw line mentally narrating every single thing your body is supposed to do? Bend your knees, Focus on the front of the rim. Release at the top. Follow through. Hold your form. By the time you've narrated all of that, your body has been paralyzed by the instructions. This is called analysis paralysis. Your brain, trying to help, actually got in the way. Self-judgment. This is the running commentary. Every time you make a mistake, do you let it go or do you replay it? Do you hear a voice say, "That was terrible," or "You always do that," or "I can't believe you missed that"? That voice is not honest. That voice is not helpful. That voice is interference, and it lingers. Trying too hard. This one surprises people. Effort is good, but there's a version of effort that turns into force. And forced movement is tight movement. When you're gripping instead of releasing, pushing instead of flowing, your body loses its natural intelligence. The best athletes in the world describe their greatest performances not as working hard, but as almost effortless. There's a reason for that. Losing focus. Mind on the scoreboard. Mind on what the coach will think. Mind on the play that just went wrong. Wherever your mind is, your body is a half beat behind. Concentration, real concentration, means being here, right now, this possession, this moment, in a kind of relaxed concentration, a detached concentration. Need for approval, playing for the nod, playing so the crowd cheers or the coach is impressed or your teammate approves. When your motivation is external, when you play for someone else's validation, your game becomes fragile because sometimes you won't get that validation when you play well. And the reverse is also true. Sometimes you'll get validation even when you played poorly. External approval is not a reliable compass. Internal motivation is better. In chapter 6 of this book, Gallwey writes one of the most beautiful passages in all of sports literature. It's an analogy, and I want us to spend real time here because I think this passage has the power to change the way you see yourself as a player and the way coaches see the players they coach. He writes about a rose seed. He says, when we plant a rose seed in the earth, we don't criticize it for being rootless and stemless. We give it what a seed needs. When it first shoots up, we don't condemn it for being immature. When the buds appear, we don't judge them for not being fully open. We stand in wonder at the process, and we give it the care it needs at each stage. Because the rose is a rose from the time it is a seed to the time it dies. Within it, at all times, it contains its whole potential. Read that last sentence again to yourself. The rose is a rose from the time it is a seed to the time it dies. Within it, at all times, it contains its whole potential. Now hear this. You are that rose. You, right now, at this stage, wherever you are in your development, contain your whole potential. Your potential is not out there in the future. It's not something you earn. It's not something that happens after you fix all your flaws. It is in you, right now, intact, whole. Your errors are not proof of deficiency. They're part of the growth process. The bud is not failing by not being open yet. It's just in a stage of becoming. And the job, whether you're the player or the coach, is not to judge the bud. It is to give it what it needs to grow. So, what does the rose look like on a basketball court? Stop criticizing the seed. If you're a freshman who turns the ball over, you're not broken. You are a seed. You are in the soil. Do not condemn yourself or let anyone condemn you for not being something you haven't had the chance to become yet. The bud cannot be a bloom before its time. What you need in that moment is not harsher judgment. What you need is patience, more reps, calm observation. Trust the growth process. A player who is struggling today contains the same potential as anyone else on the roster. You don't know how someone's growth will unfold. Gallwey's rose doesn't rush. The growth happens on its own schedule with the right nourishment. Each stage is perfectly all right as it is. So nourish, don't force. Here's the one I want coaches to really hear. Constant correction is like grabbing a seedling and yanking it upward to make it grow faster. It doesn't work. It actually damages the root. The conditions that create real growth are awareness and feel, non-judgmental feedback and trust. Those are the sunlight and water. You can't force a rose to open. You can only give it what it needs and get out of the way. So now we know what the problem is. Self one is generating interference. Wonderful, but what do we do about it? The answer is we quiet self one. And the way we quiet self one is not to fight it or to suppress it or yell at it to shut up. The way we quiet self one is to give our attention to something else, something real, something in the present moment, because self one cannot survive in the present moment. It lives in the past, replaying mistakes, or in the future, catastrophizing outcomes. When your attention is fully in the now, self one has nothing to work with. Here's what that looks like in practice. Focus on the ball or the target. In basketball, that means the rim. When you're shooting, your mind goes to the rim, not to your hands, not to your release, not to your technique, just the rim. Let your body handle the mechanics. It knows them. You've practiced them. Your job is to point your mind at the target and let self two do the rest. Non-judgmental observation. When something goes wrong, notice it, but don't judge it. There's a difference between saying, my release was short, and saying, that was awful. One is information, the other is interference. Learn to be an observer of your own performance, not a critic. Use imagery, not instructions. Before a free throw, don't narrate the mechanics. Instead, take one moment and see the ball going in. Just see it clearly. That image, your brain and nervous system processing the successful outcome, fires nearly the same pattern as the actual action. You're rehearsing success silently in the space of a breath. Breathe and reset. Between plays, your breath is your reset button. A single conscious exhale interrupts the self-one spiral. It brings you back to the present. Use it. Every timeout, every free throw, every dead ball. Breathe. Next, here's one of the most counterintuitive things Gallwey teaches, and it's probably the most important thing on the screen. There is a difference between trying hard and trusting your training, and those two things are not the same. In fact, when you try too hard, when you force effort, you create exactly the kind of muscular tension and mental rigidity that prevents your best performance from emerging. Look at the trying hard column. Forcing the body to perform, constant self-correction, muscle tension, a don't mess up mindset, focusing on avoiding errors. Does any of that sound like you at your best? I doubt it. That sounds like grinding. That sounds like survival. Now, look at trusting self too. Letting your trained skills execute, observing without judging, relaxed, fluid movement, and I've done this before mindset. Focused on what you want, not what you're afraid of. That sounds like the zone. That sounds like your best basketball. The shift from trying to trust is not about lowering your effort. It's about redirecting your effort. Instead of efforting against yourself, you learn to trust yourself. You get out of your own way. And paradoxically, when you stop fighting for control, you find that the control was there all along. Gallwey describes the central skill of the inner game as noticing without judging. He calls it non-judgmental awareness. And I want to take a moment to really explain what that means and why it's so powerful. Most of us move through performance in one of two modes. Either we're checked out, just going through the motions, not really paying attention to what's happening in our bodies, or we're checked in, but judging everything. Every rep comes with a verdict. Good, bad, better, worse. That's terrible. That was okay. What Gallwey asks us to do is something different. He asks us to be intensely attentive, fully present, fully noticing, but without the verdict. Just seeing, just feeling, just observing. The 4 steps are simple. See it. Notice what is actually happening without labeling it. Feel it. Tune into your body. What does a good pass feel like compared to a rushed one? What does a proper release feel like? Trust it. Let your body self-correct. It's designed to learn. When it gets accurate information without punishment, it adjusts. Repeat it. Keep practicing with this quality of attention. The body learns faster through awareness than through instruction. This might feel uncomfortable at first. We've been conditioned to believe that criticism is how we get better, but think about the last time someone criticized you harshly mid-performance. Did it help? Or did it tighten you up and make you more anxious? Non-judgmental awareness is the antidote to that. It's the practice of being your own best observer instead of your own worst critic. One of the most concrete expressions of quieting self-one is genuine concentration. Not the kind of concentration where you're staring hard at something and trying to focus. That's often just self-one performing effort. Real concentration is effortless. It is simply being fully here, in this moment, with this play, with this possession. The diagram on the screen says it all. Present moment focus. Watch the ball, not the defense. One play at a time. Past mistakes don't exist in the present. Future scenarios don't help you in the present. The only thing that is real right now is the next play. Here's the basketball application I want you to internalize. Between every play, you have an opportunity to reset. When there's a dead ball, a timeout, a free throw, that is your moment to return to the present. You missed a layup. Okay, the play is over. It no longer exists. The only play that matters is the one you're stepping into next. Look at the rim. Take a breath. Come back. This is a skill. It can be practiced. And the players who are best at it are the players who seem to have the shortest memory for mistakes and the longest memory for what matters, the next play. Let's talk about how learning actually works, because Gallwey's model is going to change how you think about practice. Stage 1, unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. You just play. No awareness of what's working or what isn't. Every beginning player lives here. Stage 2, conscious incompetence. Now you notice the problem. My handles break down when someone pressures me full court. You can see it. You feel it. You don't know yet how to fix it, but awareness has arrived. This is actually progress. Uncomfortable progress, but progress. Stage 3, conscious competence. Now you can do it, but only when you're concentrating. You can execute the crossover cleanly when you're focused on it, but it's fragile. Under pressure, when there are 10 other things happening, it breaks down. Most players live here for much of their development. Stage 4, unconscious competence. This is the goal. This is the skill on autopilot. Self 2 owns it. You don't have to think about it anymore. It's woven into your body. This is where elite performance comes from. And the inner game, practicing with awareness rather than just grinding through reps, is what gets you there fastest. The reason this matters for how you practice is this: grinding through reps without awareness keeps many players stuck at stage 3. They practice the mechanics over and over, but never fully internalize them because their attention during practice is split, distracted, self-critical. When you bring non-judgmental awareness to your reps, when you actually feel and observe rather than just execute and judge, you move through these stages more quickly. Let's bring all of this down to the hardwood. Free throws. This is the most controlled, unpressured moment in basketball, and yet it's where inner game battles are most visible. The reason free throw percentages drop in clutch moments is pure self-1 interference. This matters. Don't miss. Everyone is watching. Inner game wisdom teaches us to step to the line, take a breath, see the ball going in. Just that image, clear and simple. And then let your body do what it has done 10,000 times before. Trust what you've practiced. Clutch moments. The game is on the line, 10 seconds left, you have the ball. Self-1 goes absolutely haywire in that moment. The internal commentary spikes. The body tightens. Decisions become forced. The inner game response is a reset cue. Something physical. Touch your jersey. Exhale. Find the rim. Interrupt the spiral. Come back to the next play. Reacting to mistakes. You just made a bad pass. You just got beat off the dribble. The inner game asks you to shake it off. Literally, physically, shake it off. And then observe without judgment. I drifted to the left. That's information, not a verdict, not a condemnation, just data that your body can use. And then, next play. Practice habits. Practice is where the inner game is built. Instead of mindlessly counting reps, each rep becomes a chance to feel the shot. Ask yourself after each attempt, how did that feel? Not, was it right? But how did it feel? That question builds body intelligence, quality of attention over quantity of repetition. Film watching. Watch your own film the way a curious scientist watches an experiment. What do you notice? Not what did you do wrong? What do you observe? What patterns appear? When you watch film with judgment, you learn defensiveness. When you watch film with curiosity, you learn. Team culture. This one is for all of us, players and coaches alike. A team that practices non-judgmental awareness creates safety. And safety is the condition under which Self-2 performs. When players are afraid of making mistakes because mistakes are met with ridicule or harsh criticism, Self-1 stays loud for everyone. When mistakes are treated as information and growth is honored, Self-2 gets room to breathe. I want to let Gallwey speak for himself for a moment. These are 3 ideas from his book paraphrased in his spirit. First, the opponent inside your own head is more daunting than the one across the net, or in our case, across the court. We spend enormous energy preparing to compete against external opponents. We watch film, we learn tendencies, we prepare defenses, but we spend almost no time preparing to compete against the opponent who is with us at all times, the one inside our own heads. That opponent has home court advantage every single game. Second, it's not what happens to you that determines your performance, but how you react to it. You cannot control the bounce of the ball. You cannot control the ref's call. You cannot control whether you get fouled, but you can control the inner game response to all of those things. Your reaction is always yours, and your reaction either creates interference or clears it. Third, when you trust Self-2, you learn faster than through any amount of conscious instruction. This is maybe the most radical thing Gallwey says. It challenges the whole premise of how we think about coaching and learning. We assume that more instruction equals more improvement. He says the opposite is often true. Trust, awareness, and the freedom to feel and self-correct, those are the conditions that produce the fastest learning. Ideas are only valuable when they become action. So here's what I want us to commit to starting this week. Daily, pre-game reset ritual. Before every warm-up, 2 minutes of quiet breathing. Set one word of intention, not a strategy, not a goal, just one word. Flow, trust, present. That word is your inner game compass for the session. No phones in those 2 minutes, just stillness before the work begins. In game, use a reset cue. We could agree as a team on a physical reset cue. After a turnover, after a bad call, after any moment that spikes Self-1, we tap our chest twice and exhale. It's brief, it's physical, and it interrupts the Self-1 spiral before it takes hold. Practice. Feel first reps. Especially on free throws, before each shot, take one moment and see it going in. Then shoot. And after each shot, ask yourself, how did that feel? Not was it right, how did it feel? Build the language of body intelligence. Review. Neutral film sessions. When we watch film, we're going to try an experiment. We're going to start the film session by asking, what do I notice? Instead of, what was wrong? Curiosity before judgment. Honor the rows. You'll be surprised what you see differently when you're not on the defensive before the tape starts rolling. Before we move into the coaching section, let me bring it home. Self 1 versus Self 2. Your mind is either working against you or for you. It is rarely neutral. And the good news, the extraordinary news actually, is that which self is running the show is something you have influence over. Not total control, but real influence. And the practice of the inner game is how you exercise it. Performance equals potential minus interference. Talent is not enough. Execution under pressure is the real game. And execution under pressure is not about having more talent. It's about having less noise between you and your talent. The rose. You are already whole. You already contain your potential. Every stage of your development, even the difficult, frustrating stages, is the rose being the rose. Honor it. Trust over try. Stop fighting yourself on the court. Your training is real. Your body knows more than your conscious mind gives it credit for, so let it play. Non-Judgmental Awareness. Notice, feel, self-correct, repeat. That is the inner game practice in 4 words. It works. It has worked for athletes, musicians, performers, and coaches across every discipline for 50 years. Present moment focus. The only play that matters is the one you are in right now. Not the last one, not the next one, this one. Be here. Champions are made in the mind before they are made on the court. That's not a poster quote. That's a training program. And it starts today. Everything we've talked about so far has been aimed at the player, at how your mind affects your performance, at how to quiet self 1 and trust self 2, at how to see yourself as a rose in a natural process of becoming. But now I want to turn the lens around, because here's something Gallwey understood deeply. The inner game does not just live inside the athlete. It lives inside the coaching relationship. It lives in the space between the coach and the player. And if a coach is not aware of the inner game, if a coach is running their own version of Self 1 onto their players, then everything we just talked about gets undermined. So this section is for the coaches. And I want to say this with all the respect it deserves. This section may be the most uncomfortable part of the presentation. Not because coaching is wrong, coaching is extraordinary, but because the inner game asks coaches to consider something genuinely challenging. That some of what we do, with the best intentions in the world, may actually be generating interference in the athletes we love. There are essentially 2 models of coaching. Let's look at them honestly. The traditional model says the coach is the expert, the player is the receiver. The coach's job is to identify errors and correct them. Praise and criticism are the primary tools. The standard of success are the players doing it my way? And effort is driven, often by fear. Fear of the coach, fear of benching, fear of disapproval. Now, I want to be clear. That model has produced winning teams. It's familiar. There is something in it that works. But through the lens of the inner game, look at what it also does. It puts the coach in the role of Self 1 for the entire team. It makes the coach's voice the loudest voice in the athlete's head. And it trains athletes to look outward, to the bench, to the coach, to external approval, rather than inward, where their actual performance lives. The inner game model says something different. The player is the learner. The coach's role is to create conditions for learning. Errors are information, not verdicts. The standard of success is Are the players growing into their own potential? And motivation comes from inside the athlete, from genuine challenge, genuine curiosity, genuine love of the game. Neither model is purely right or wrong, but if you want to produce players who can perform under pressure without looking at the bench for permission, players who trust themselves in the fourth quarter, the inner game model is where that comes from. So how do you actually do it? Here are 6 practical shifts that will change your coaching profoundly if you commit to them. Number 1, ask, don't tell. Replace "you need to do X" with "what did you notice on that play?" This is more than a stylistic difference. It is a fundamentally different model of learning. Instructions activate self 1. The player's conscious mind takes over, tries to execute the instruction, and overrides the natural learning process. Questions activate self 2. They invite the player's own awareness to engage, and that awareness is what produces lasting change. Number 2, observe without judging. When a player makes a mistake, the most powerful thing you can do is pause before you respond. That pause is not passivity. That pause is the coach practicing non-judgmental awareness. Your reaction in that moment becomes a model for how the player reacts to themselves. If you react with frustration, their self 1 learns to react with frustration. If you react with calm curiosity, their self 2 learns to do the same. Number 3, give awareness tasks, not fixes. Instead of correcting a player's footwork, try this. This rep, just notice where your weight is at the moment of release. Just notice. You've not told them what to do. You've pointed their attention at the right thing. And awareness, real, felt, embodied awareness, creates change faster than any instruction ever will. The body, when it feels what is happening, self-corrects naturally. Number 4, use the positive image. Don't tell a player what not to do, tell them what to do. There is a neurological reason for this. When the brain processes "don't pull up short," it first has to imagine pulling up short, and that image activates the very pattern you're trying to eliminate. When you say, "see the ball going in," the brain builds a success image. Coach toward the outcome you want, not away from the one you fear. Number 5, reduce verbal interference. Constant coaching commentary during drills, during reps, during plays is self 1 noise injected from the outside. It fragments the athlete's attention and prevents self 2 from taking over. Silence during reps is not laziness. Silence during reps is trust. Coach between plays, not through them. Give your notes after the drill, not over the top of it. Number 6, honor each stage of the rows. Do not condemn a player for being where they are in their development. The sophomore who still telegraphs his passes, the junior who breaks down under full court pressure, the senior who still doubts himself at the free throw line. They are seeds, they are buds, they are not failures because they're not yet blooms. Ask yourself, what does this player need at this stage of their growth? And then give them that. Nourish. Don't force. I want to close this section with something that might be the most important thing in the entire presentation for coaches. Our self-image as coaches shapes everything. It shapes what we notice, what we reward, what we punish, what we celebrate, what we fear. And most coaches, even great ones, are operating from a self-image that was inherited rather than chosen. The old self-image says, I am the authority. My players need my corrections. My job is to fill empty vessels with knowledge. Success means players doing it my way. Mistakes must be identified and eliminated. Players play for me and for the team, and I'm evaluated by wins and losses. That self-image is not wrong, but look at what it does. It makes the coach the center. It makes the game about the coach's vision, the coach's standards, the coach's approval, and it measures success in a way that can never fully honor what actually happened, the growth in each individual player. The inner game coach has a different self-image. I create conditions. My players discover their own game. My job is to tend the garden, not to build the plant. Success means players growing into their own potential. Mistakes are information. The body learns from them. Players play for something inside themselves. And I am evaluated by the growth I enable in each player. That second self-image requires something of the coach that is genuinely difficult. It requires stepping back, releasing the need to be the expert in the room, trusting the player's process even when it's messy, measuring yourself differently. But the coaches who can do that, the coaches who can function as gardeners rather than architects, those coaches produce players who are mentally resilient, who trust themselves under pressure, and who carry what they learned long after the season ends. Gallwey writes, "The coach's job is not to make something happen. It is to remove the obstacles that prevent something from happening naturally." Let that sit for a moment. Not to make something happen, to remove the obstacles, to get out of the way of what is already there, already trying to emerge, already whole in potential. I want to close with 4 questions. I'm going to ask them, and I want you to sit with each one honestly. You don't have to answer out loud. These are between you and yourself. When a player makes a mistake, is my first instinct to correct or to ask what they noticed? Do players trust themselves, or do they look to the bench before they make a decision? Am I coaching their self-2, or am I feeding their self-1? Do I honor each player as a rose that contains its whole potential? The rose is a rose from the time it is a seed to the time it dies. Within it, at all times, it contains its whole potential. That's true for your players. It's true of you as a coach. And it's true of every person at whatever stage of becoming they happen to be in today.